So in order to give you a little bit of a sense of what the show's really about, we want to touch down on the investigative story at every point. So the idea of highlighting what we find out about the world, how we chase things down, is just as interesting to many of our listeners as is the actual narrative story. So we want to highlight the things we find out, what we end up, the findings and how we actually tell the story is the investigative part, but most importantly also what happens as a result of the kinds of stories we do. Because often stories kind of get dropped and then we move on to the next thing, and this show really has, in every episode, featured the impact. And in fact, the first show, I'm just going to let you hear a little bit about what the story was. As we mentioned, the VA story, overprescription of VA of veterans in the U.S. And I'm just going to go to the next slide. Let you hear a little bit about what it sounds like.
It's 3 in the morning in Newport, New Hampshire. Tim Fazio is cooking eggs over easy. He's dressed in shorts and an undershirt. The Marine Corps veteran says he prefers the night when there are no loud noises to trigger post-traumatic stress disorder, which he developed after serving in Iraq and Afghanistan.
I thought the painkillers were okay because the doctors were prescribing it to me, so it was okay.
Fazio's medical record shows he started getting opiates from the VA in 2008, 2 years after he left the Corps. Since then, the agency has provided him with nearly 4,000 oxycodone pills and more than a dozen bottles of tramadol, another opioid painkiller. He told me he was never in acute physical pain, but he took the pills to blot out the guilt and shame of surviving when so many of his fellow Marines died in combat.
So this was our first story. As we said, we broke a story. We wanted to show that it's a story that could be localized. This is very important to public radio. It's a massive audience, and they'd like to touch down on the story and see if it's happening in their backyard, and in this case it was.